son, where'd you find this?
That's how you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late, they cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people. Those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it. It's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching. It's how they act when they think you'll tolerate it.
His own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the force of the Cold War.
It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of it.
You see it only bringing if the government had to change the school in the grid, they have to shut it down. We got state troopers out there. We got planes flown. We got the strange machine.
Happy Wednesday, peace and blessings, great praise and honors to the Most High. I hope all is well with each and every single one of you. Thank you for being here. Shout out to my poets, writers, content creators, painters, authors, all of you. Much love to the lots of you. I appreciate y'all for being here this evening. You know what time it is. You know what day it is. I'm going to bring Sydney up here in a second. I just want to, first of all, extend my gratitude for her for this segment. It's well needed on these YouTube streets, and I'm glad to have her here. Do me a solid, like, share, repost, let the people know that we are on. You are not going to want to miss this conversation. I think I got everything out. Oh, make sure you go check out the book. I might have to get that link together up here at some point. We're gonna get that together. But y'all give her a warm welcome. Share your thoughts, your comments in the comment section. I will be in the background doing my DJ thing, and let's have a good time. All right, Sid, you up? I will see you in a bit. 1 second.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sydney, and today, as you can see from the title, I'm going to be. I have a visitor.
Hi.
Can I say hi?
Hi.
All right. Going out. Go play. She always loves to introduce herself on the stream as well. Be prepared for her to come back at some point. So yeah, as you can see, we're going to be talking about gas prices. Obviously, unless you are Patrick living under a rock, yes, you can say hi as well.
Hi.
Come on, you have to stand in the picture.
Hi.
All right, give him a wave, but then you have to go, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can you close the door? Yeah. Almost 3-year-old and almost 5-year-old. So, they gotta get their attention in. Anyway, unless you are Patrick living under a rock, most people are probably aware of what's happening in the world, what's happening with gas prices in particular. And I'm sure most of us at this point are feeling the pain at the pump, as they say. And so I thought it would be a good time to talk about what's going on. While I'm not going to go into the politics of what's happening, because one, super complicated and kind of up in the air, a lot behind there. And I'm not exactly a political expert, so I feel like I'm not quite adept enough to kind of touch on those areas. I wanted to talk more about the impacts that we can expect from oil and a little bit behind the pricing, what it will affect in our daily lives, and a little bit in the like environmental kind of aspects of gas and oil. So yeah. So again, gas prices right now are on the rise because currently, due to tensions in the Middle East, the Strait of Hormuz is blocked. Some countries are allowed to pass through while others are not. And recently, it was probably the beginning of April, I think the last shipment to arrive in California, at least, was April 11th. And then I think April 5th might have been the most recent, or the last shipment sent to the East Coast. And so that is the key factor affecting gas and oil prices. But something that a lot of people don't think about is, besides the cost of driving your car, it's also going to affect a lot of other things. And so that's why I think it's so important to talk about, because we are already living in an economy that is immensely stressed. People are struggling to make ends meet. People are already using credit cards just to buy food. People are dealing with exceptional debt. They're struggling to afford their homes. Homes are in foreclosure. People are losing their jobs and can't find new ones. So we are already in a financially weak and vulnerable position as a country. And this extends to the rest of the world too. I'm going to be talking about America, but do know that this is going to affect other parts of the world as well. Because yes, even though America is losing what we get from the Strait of Hormuz, which makes up about 7% of our gas imports, which doesn't seem like a lot. But if you think about it, when you close the strait to many countries, it's going to increase the prices for everyone. Put it a different way, if there's an apple shortage, then it's going to raise the price for anybody that is buying those apples, because now they're going to be competing for a shorter supply of apples. So that's part of what's happening, is now countries are now competing for a decreased supply of gas and oil. So that is also going to increase the prices, as some of the places are really having to almost bid on the oil that is actually available. So one of the reasons why oil is so expensive to begin with is it's a non-renewable resource, and it takes a lot of money just to extract oil. And we've gotten to the point in time where a lot of the gas and oil that is available to be extracted from the earth is deeper and harder to extract. Shale oil, which is oil that is found between layers of rocks, is more so what we have available now. We don't just have like pools of oil sitting around to be exploited, as we did in the past. Back in the boom of the oil production, at the very beginning, when we first found oil, you could literally just like tap into the ground and the well would spout oil, as kind of like what you see on whales. But it was extremely abundant, and obviously like pricing was very different back then, but it was much more readily accessible than it is today. You have to do a lot more like fracking, which is where you shoot high powered water streams into the ground to break apart the rock and get access to the oil, which is a lot more expensive and also a lot more environmentally intensive. And because it's a non-renewable resource, this isn't something that we can produce on our own. It takes millions of years to produce gas and oil. If you don't know about how it's produced, long story short, gas and oil is compressed organic matter that over millions of years has the organic compounds have turned into an inorganic oil. And so we're not able to just make more. What we have is a finite resource, in the same way that rock and other, like, even at this point, like trees are kind of becoming a non-renewable resource because of how quickly we go through them. But again, when you have a limited source of something, and on top of that, it takes a very long time to produce it, or you don't have the capacity to produce it, it really increases the prices. That's why wind and solar are significantly cheaper than gas and oil, because we're not going to run out of the sun. We're not going to run out of wind, and it's going to be constantly produced. So that's one thing that affects oil prices that we can't control for. But anyways, currently 20% of the world's oil goes through the Strait of Hormuz. So now that has been cut off, it has dramatically decreased the available oil. And so a lot of countries are going to start having to source it from other countries, or are going to have to start relying more on their own sources. As I said, in America, about 7% of the crude oil imports are coming from the Persian Gulf countries. But that's still a pretty significant amount financially, when you think about how much oil that we actually use. This decrease is going to affect a lot of things in the economy. It's not just going to affect driving. It's going to affect everything across the board in the economy. One of the biggest impacts that we'll probably see the soonest is the effect on the trucking industry. Diesel costs are already skyrocketing. Just at our gas station here, it's like $8 a gallon. And if you think about how much oil is like, even Suburbans and SUVs take like 100 gallons. And so if you're paying like $6 for gas, that is a lot of money just for gas. Let's see. Semi trucks can hold between 100 and 300 gallons of gas. So if you, let's see, I can't do math in my head. So that would be, that's a lot of money. $2,400 just to fill up a truck. And all of these truckers, for the most part, are traveling very long distances, sometimes across the entire country. So that is going to add up so fast. And so they are going to pass on those costs to us, to the buyers, because to make up for that money that they're spending on gas, they have to put it into the product prices. And the first items that are going to 100% see increases in prices is food, especially non-perishable foods. Things like milk, fresh fruit and vegetables, cheeses, seafood, dairy, anything that requires refrigeration is going to see skyrocketing prices because unlike something like grains, rice, dry goods, you don't need as extensive of protections that you do with refrigerated goods. Like you need specialty trucks to transport things that can spoil. But it's also harder to it's harder to ship them in bulk, or I mean the fresh stuff in bulk. And then also there's more of a time crunch. So stuff like, as I said, meats and dairy and stuff like that, we're going to be seeing these prices increases in a matter of weeks, now that we have lost this access to that percentage of oil. On top of that, any other goods that are transported by truck, clothing, electronics, household appliances, anything really. If you buy it and it has to be shipped to you, if it has to be shipped to a new location, if it has to be produced with goods that are being shipped, as we all know, all the commodities and stuff like that aren't produced in one location. When you make one object, you're getting parts from all over. You don't just produce the plastic and the metal parts and all the pieces in one location. You have to ship all of those parts in from other places, which includes other countries. And so then you also have the airplane fuel as well. And so any consumer goods that have to be assembled and then shipped are going to have much higher prices as well. They also are going to increase the prices because of the factories themselves. Not only the cost of shipping the goods, but also producing the goods, because what do we use to produce goods? Oil to run the machineries and all of the electronics and whatnot needed in the factories. All of them use oil and gas to power all of that stuff. Additionally, some of the products themselves are made from petroleum. Anything made out of plastics are derived from petroleum in some way. And so anything made out of plastic is going to also see price increases just because of the price to produce the plastic in the first place and the use of the petroleum to make them. So packaging, toys, containers, fabrics. If you didn't know, a great majority of clothing nowadays is made out of plastic. If your shirt says polyester, that is plastic. Like literally the only materials off the top of my head that I know of that aren't plastic based are things like hemp, cotton, linen, which come from plants, and silk, which come from silkworms. So anything that you buy, like cheap, fast fashion, those prices are also going to be going up. So Temu is no longer going to be 30 cents for a shirt. It might be $3 for a shirt, which may not sound like a lot, but it adds up. And that's mostly a joke also. Sort of. But all of these goods that rely on plastic in materials, or even plastic parts, it might not be fully made of plastic, but there's plastic in them. For example, canned goods often have a lining of plastic inside the cans. Think bottled water is going to have increases in prices because of how they're packaged. Anything, as I said earlier, the perishable foods are going to be increased in price, but also packaged goods are going to increase in price because of the cost of the packaging itself. So, yes, this is going to affect products across the board. Anything that you buy that has plastic in it that had to be shipped or is produced in other countries is going to be far more expensive. And as I said, we are already struggling. They released a report study, I don't know what you call it, recently where they said at this point right now in the country, the leading cause of defaults on like personal loans and stuff, or the leading defaults on costs and stuff like that is with bills, like energy bills. People are so broke now that people are foregoing paying for the things that heat their home and give them electricity because they can't. And they're choosing between food, medical costs, and rent. And a lot of people are starting to forego paying for utilities because they can't. There was not a boy, he was like 20, I think. He just died. He passed away because he had to choose between, I think it was like $500 for diabetes medication, or his rent. And he chose the rent, and he ended up passing away because he didn't have access to that medication he needed. So we are seeing right now, people are put between a rock and a hard place already. And now you're going to add this on top. Like, people are already struggling to eat, and now we're going to see prices increase in food. We're already seeing people struggle to pay for utilities, and we're going to see an increase in that as well. People are already reducing the travel that they do, and the goods that they're buying because of the cost, and now we're adding this on top of it. So this is a huge problem that I think is being underestimated, at least by the mainstream media. I do see a lot of YouTubers talking about this now, and the amount of impacts that there is going to be. But I do think that the mainstream media is not honest enough, I think, about how bad this is actually going to be for the economy. And we're already at a tipping point with the economy as well. We're seeing what's called a K-shaped recovery, where people in the higher echelons, people who are far more wealthy, are doing okay. But people who are middle class and below are really struggling. And there's also a theory that this whole industry right now, or the whole economy, is being propped up by AI. Well, I won't go into that. If that's actually true, then that also puts us at even more risk, because guess what these facilities use to run those AI facilities? If you have an increase in gas prices, on top of the fact that they're using a tremendous, I couldn't even exaggerate how much water it takes to run these facilities, it's going to also increase the cost of AI, which is already exorbitant. So that could actually cause the AI bubble to pop, and it might not be as worth it for these companies to use AI. And if that is truly propping up the economy, we could see the mother of all crashes when these gas prices really, really start to hit us. Another aspect, as I said, in the US, or no, sorry, in the world, in the entire world, 82% of global energy comes from fossil fuels. And with the increase in prices of gas, we are going to see an increase in the global energy sources. So heating, air conditioning, electricity, all of these things rely, and even filtering, like all of the plumbing, filtration systems, everything that it takes to clean the water and bring it into homes, that also uses gas and oil to run these, all of the technology and whatnot that they need to do all of that work. And if you increase the prices there, you're also going to see increases in water prices as well. And so when you increase all of these utilities, and arguably like the most, besides food, like the ultimate necessities, like these are things that some people in some areas cannot live without. Most people do not have access to a stream or a like a source of water besides what comes out of their tap. And there is already people in really stressed regions that are already struggling to get access to water. And so when you add this to the mix as well, you're going to have water prices increase, food prices increase, commodities increase, gasoline, electricity and heating, and all of that increase when we're already experiencing a record, like people can't afford housing. This is a whole cascade that's going to be a huge, huge problem. Well, I'm not an expert, but just from what I see, what I know, this is going to affect the homeless crisis, because there are going to be even more people that are pushed out of their homes because now they're competing between medical costs, food costs, energy costs, water costs, and oftentimes people may not be able to afford the rent already, and then you add all of this on top of it, they're going to lose their homes. They're going to lose their apartments. They're going to be living in cars. They're going to be living in tents in the woods, all of which are scenarios that are already increasing in general without this crisis. The other concern of mine is we are coming into an El Nino year, which I'll be covering in a future episode. This El Nino is the worst El Nino they've seen, or like it's projected. It's not quite there yet, because an El Nino develops over time. But based on the trajectories proposed by scientists, the majority of scientists that are producing these predictions are showing either above average to historic level El Nino. And the reason this is so problematic is El Ninos increase the risk and severity of heat-related events, and also can cause other more damaging weather events as well. And so if you have cities already hotter than average, and then you add on a weather phenomenon that makes things even more hot than average. For example, we're already breaking heat records in April and May, which is wild, unheard of. And you add that along with people can't afford utilities such as air conditioning or such as heating, that is also going to cause a lot of issues. And sadly, it could cause a lot of deaths, because if you have an extremely hot summer and no access to air conditioning, a lot of people could die, especially young kids and older adults, elderly adults that have a hard time regulating their body temperature. Because once you get into the hundreds, it becomes very hard for the body to release the excess heat back into the environment because it's already hot. And so there's nowhere for the heat to go. And so the body just starts to overheat. And once you get to a certain body temperature, you stop producing sweat, and it causes like mental dysfunctions, and then eventually it causes your organs to shut down. And people dying in heat waves is already not an uncommon thing, particularly in lower income regions of the country that don't have access to the nice, awesome air conditioning that we have here in the US and other parts of the world. They have mass deaths from heat waves. And arguably, heat waves, I think, are the number one cause of mass fatalities at the moment. Let's see. I know in China and India, they had a severe heat wave in like 2003. There was, let me see, worst heat waves in history. I'm gonna do modern ones. There were definitely a lot of dangerous heat waves in the past, but I'm gonna give the ones from the more recent decades. In 1980, in the U.S., 1,700 people died in South and Midwest. It also caused $20 billion in damage to crops because plants also do not handle heat well. Basically, if you're a living thing, high heat for extended periods of time will kill you. Russian summer of 2010, hottest in 100 years, 56,000 deaths. Southern Pakistan, 2015, 2,000 people died. India, 2015, severe heat wave. 2,500 people passed away. And that was in May, which is crazy. Usually we think of summer as like June to September. In 1995, Chicago, 739 people died. On one day alone, 215 people died. A lot of them were elderly residents in poorly ventilated facilities and didn't have adequate air conditioning. Greece, 1987, 1,500 Greeks passed away in the heat wave. It was a heat wave that lasted days. And additionally, it fueled wildfires because when you have a super, super hot air, when you have really hot air, it makes it much easier for things to catch on fire. And it can be so hot that it can actually set the vegetation on fire on its own, where it gets baked in the sun so much and so it's so hot that it'll actually make the grass just burst into flames, which is also really crazy. This is the one that I was thinking of. Europe, 2003, 70,000 people died in Europe because it was averaging, 40 degrees Celsius is, I think that's like 112. Let's see. That is 104. So it was 104 on average. So it was hotter in other places. They lost billions of dollars in crops, created widespread drought, and France in particular had 14,000 deaths alone. 1988, 5,000 to 10,000 victims in, it doesn't specify exact regions, but North America, so likely Canada and the US and probably Mexico, and then Mexico. 2020 or 2002, in India, another 1,200 people died. So these can be extremely, extremely severe. And not to mention when you have extremely high temperatures and a lot of people are using their air conditionings, especially in regions with high populations, you can also have power outages because so many people are using electricity that it it overwhelms the grid, and the grid is not able to produce energy to the capacity that is needed to run all of these households. So and this is for people living in homes. If you have homeless on the street as well, you have people living in their cars, that is going to even increase the death rate even more, because it does not take very long for cars to heat up. There's a reason why it's a crime in most states to leave a baby unattended in a car or pets in a car. Let's see. For example, they've shown this. If you want to see, they have videos of people like putting temperature gauges inside cars and leaving it closed to show how high it goes. For example, somebody did a test and it was 88 degrees outside, but inside the car, it was 114 degrees, which is fatal to people and dogs. In like 1990, 21 people died because of high temperatures. So this happens more frequently than you'd think. But people who have to live in their cars to survive, if they're sleeping or something like that, they could potentially die inside their cars. Not to mention people that have to sleep on the streets could also pass away because the heat coming off of the pavement, lack of access to resources. There's a reason why a lot of places, particularly in the South and the mid desert regions of California, they have cooling centers that they open. So if people don't have access to air conditioning, they can come and cool off. But I see this as a huge issue that they're not focusing on in the news at all. They're not talking about how, one, a lot of news sources, mainstream news sources, are not acknowledging the severity of the homeless epidemic right now, the number of people living in cars and storage units and on the streets, hidden in other areas. And with this massive increase in people relying on not living in homes, are going to be at much higher risk of passing away during heat waves. And then, not to mention, to have the air conditioning running in your car, you have to use gas. And if somebody can't afford the gas because they already can't afford rent and food and stuff like that, and don't have a job or something like that, they're not going to be able to afford to cool themselves even inside their cars. So this is one of the issues that I'm the most worried about. I know a lot of people are focusing very heavily on like food shortages and stuff like that, which again, is also going to be a very severe problem, particularly with perishable goods, with vegetables. If you don't already, now is a good time to start growing herbs and vegetables that you use frequently. Connect with neighbors that have fruit growing in their yards. Find community gardens that you can use or rely on. Food cooperatives. Like, there's a lot of different options to get lower cost food in some areas, not everywhere. But now is the time to start really stocking up on those types of materials you need, because there's going to be a decrease in access to some of these foods, because when you have this heat wave, it's going to kill more crops, and then of course it costs a lot of money to produce some of these goods. Another issue, compounding issue, is farmers are already unable to pay to harvest the crops, and there are a lot of farmers that are literally letting crops wilt in the fields because it's not cost effective for them to actually harvest it. So yeah, food prices are going to increase, but really I'm the most worried about the temperatures and what we can kind of expect during a heat wave when we also don't have access to the energy needed to protect people from those heat waves. So changing gears slightly, one other issue that is coming up, not directly related to gas and oil, but very much intertwined because of where it comes from. We rely on urea, which comes from those regions as well, and that is a key component of fertilizer. And at this point, basically everything is produced using fertilizer. Fertilizer is one of the I think the book Guns, Germs, and Steel covers it, of the important, like how fundamentally important fertilizer is for society, where society would not be able to be in this position in terms of like how many people exist if we did not have fertilizer. Fertilizer enabled us to produce enough food to support the numbers that we have. And without fertilizer, the food crops are not going to be as big, they're not going to produce as well, and they're not going to be as numerous. So not having access to urea is going to increase the cost of production of fertilizer, and is also going to make fertilizer harder to come by, because we don't have the access to the materials needed to produce the fertilizer. So that is going to, again, compound on top of the pricing of food. When it's harder to produce, you already have farmers stretched and unable to afford producing now, are going to have increases of a crucial component of food production. And we don't pay farmers enough. We don't help them at all. Like, farmers, I see in the same realm as teachers, where they do a massive service to the community, and they get the short end of the stick. They are not valued as members of society. They are forgotten in almost every single discussion. We focus on business people and fast food workers and nurses, and of course, like, some of these people we need, and they're very important to us, but like, farmers produce the food that we eat. They're literally making the difference between us having to scrounge in the garbage cans or hunt our own food, which is outlawed in most areas, and we don't have the animals needed to provide. for our nutritional needs, nearly as much as we would need. And they're forgotten. They're underpaid. They're mistreated, and we just kind of expect them to keep doing what they're doing and absorb all the costs. But when you have to pay for the machinery, the tractors, the all the other stuff that is required to process the food, to split the grains from the rest of the plant, to package all of the goods, they have everything. Like everything involved is going to be affected by gas prices because they use plastic to package their goods. They use machinery that rely on oil to plant the plants, to pick the plants, to process the plants, make it accessible, and then they have to pay to like ship it to buyers, and everything along the way to produce food is going to be impacted by gas prices, and they are going to either have to absorb the prices on their own, which they don't have the capacity to do, or they're going to pass it on to the consumers. And if consumers stop buying these products because they're too expensive, it's just going to add to the problem. So this whole crisis has so many different aspects that I think are being neglected, are not being talked about. It's going to affect everything that we do. People are not going to be able to travel. People are not going to be able to afford food and energy and water and consumer goods. Like, there's already a pullback in consumer strength. I've seen countless warnings. I've seen warnings from Home Depot, from the auto part industry, from grocery stores, even from Chase Bank. All of these groups that have a kind of an eye on the economy because they see directly how people are spending. It's affected. Even McDonald's has been seeing a pullback in spending. They're saying that for the first time, I think in history, high income earners are relying on McDonald's to feed themselves, and the poor class is not able to afford McDonald's. They're pulling out of the market because they can't afford McDonald's, which is crazy because McDonald's is basically the Temu of the food industry. So people are already extremely stressed out, and this is going to be a massive impact on people. They wonder why nobody wants to have kids. Like, if you can't even afford the basics for yourself or your partner, you're not going to want to bring in kids as well. I think they say like the average kid costs like $13,000 a year. So, and not to mention like childcare is $1,000 a month in some places. So we're already stretched. This economy is already struggling massively. And now you're just going to add this on top. I hate to sound like a fearmonger, because I like to provide solution-oriented discussions. But this is going to be a problem. This is something that I think is being underestimated and is not being talked about enough about the actual ramifications of this. As I said, a lot of people are focusing on the food crisis, which is very, very understandable. A lot of people are afraid of like commodities not being available. I've seen a lot of YouTubers talking about how they're stocking up. I've seen people stocking up on water. I've seen people like showing how they cut their budget and how they're starting to eat at home and produce their own food. And all of the different, there's so many resources online showing how to make it through a financial crisis. A lot of people taking advice from the Great Depression, which I would highly encourage people to start looking into different ways that you can cut costs, different ways that you can stretch your meals. I highly would recommend reducing your spending on meals in restaurants, because those prices are going to massively increase as well. And like, if I eat at a restaurant with just my kids and my husband, it's easily going to be $100, easily, and that is a grocery store haul that would last for a week. So if you're already strapped for cash, stop eating out, start making your own food, and have water available to you. That way, if there is issues with water access, you'll at least have bottled water. The rule of thumb for emergencies is 3 days per person, or I think it, how many gallons is it? 3 gallons? About 4 liters of water per day per person. So you could also stock up on that. Have alternate sources of energy. I don't think I have it in here with me, but I have, like, there's small little backup generator things that you just plug into the wall, and it has, like, I think mine is like 99 hours of energy. And I have one, like, in each room. That way, if there is power outages or something, we still have access to electricity for a time. I also would highly recommend reducing your spending in unnecessary areas, like hold off on buying clothes, hold off on buying toys, hold off on buying things that are made of plastic, and, like, just reduce your spending in every non-essential area that you possibly can. Pay off your debts as much as you can, because you're going to need a cushion to absorb the costs of everything right now. And the fact that a lot of people are relying on debt for food, you'll want to make sure that you have at least some cushion if something goes terribly wrong. Also have alternate sources of lighting in your home. For example, I have, like, little lanterns throughout my house, as well as long-term burning candles. So if we lose electricity because of heat waves, or God forbid they run out of oil to run the electricity, I at least have sources of lighting at night in my house. I have one in each bathroom, and additional lighting options throughout my house. But it's going to be something that is not it's going to take a while to resolve this. Even if the Strait of Hormuz is opened today, it'll still take months, if not possibly even over a year, to restart the whole process. Because sometimes they might have to close the refineries that they're not using anymore, reestablishing the trade routes, reestablishing the peace that we need between these countries. There's a wait time in between the reestablishing the access and actually getting it. Also, like, takes time to ship it across the ocean to actually get to us. So even if this resolves magically in today, we're still going to see these impacts into the future. There's a lag time to fix this type of situation. And then it also, there's a lag time in the price decreasing as well, because they're still going to have to like re-up the supplies that are available, refill all of the storage facilities using oil and gas. And then, not to mention, if it gets bad enough that certain places actually run out of oil and gas, if you shut down a lot of these types of, like, the water production facilities, the electricity grids, all of that stuff, that also takes a lot of time to restart. So there's, again, this is not a situation that we're just going to magically fix. It's, and then it'll also get worse the longer it goes, because then we'll still have a shortage. Like, best case scenario, we'll see an increase in prices of stuff, but worst case scenario, some areas that can't afford to bring in oil might shut down. Like, you might see small rural communities fleeing for the cities because they don't have energy sources to run their households. We might even start seeing a return to Victorian era heating methods, where people are using coal and wood to start heating their homes. Or, like, because if we get to the winter and this hasn't resolved, we're also going to have the flip side of the problem, where it's going to be so cold and people don't have heating, that they'll die in their cars, they'll die in their homes. People definitely don't think, like, when we think of disasters, we think of floods and volcanoes and hurricanes and earthquakes, but really heat waves and cold snaps where you don't have electricity are some of the most impactful disasters that we can see. And if we have a record-breaking El Nino that is the worst we've ever seen historically, as is projected by scientists, we're going to have a very severe hot summer, but then we're also going to have a very, very stormy, wet, cold winter as well. And when you have that, and then you have everyone using their heaters, you're also going to have the same issue that you have during the summer, just the other way around, where you can have people that are dying in their homes from the cold. Not to mention, when you have these big storms, it has the potential to damage the grid, the electrical grid. Ice storms and wind storms can knock down electricity wires. You can have water services disrupted by flooding, and lack of electricity and stuff like that. Even those types of disasters can take months of recovery. And if you're adding that on top of the gas issues, it's going to cost a lot to even facilitate the recovery, because all of the machinery that is required to move the debris out of the way and start rebuilding. So it's going to make recovery from disasters harder by not having the gas and oil reserves that we need. And again, small communities are going to be quite impacted by this, because a lot of them have to ship oil in, and they don't have direct access to the oil. They're kind of like, they get the last pick, if you compare to cities on the eastern seaboard and the west coast. So yeah, there's so much to this that it's hard to even fathom the kind of impacts that we might end up seeing. And again, I don't want to come off as a fearmonger, because I like to at least have faith that the best will happen, or like that the worst won't happen. But it's a frankly alarming situation. Just from my experience with knowing how the environment affects people already, knowing how an El Nino affects communities already, but then you have gas pressure on top of it, which is going to also affect commodities of all kinds, it does worry me. There's a lot to this that, and honestly, there's probably a lot of impacts that I'm not even thinking about yet that could affect people that we wouldn't really consider. One other aspect, I mentioned this just a little bit ago. If people start going back to like candles and wood and coal to use as a secondary source, it's going to also, especially in the wintertime, or in the wintertime, you definitely wouldn't be heating your home in the summer, but it can cause house fires, and it can also cause air pollution as well. If you're burning things that produce particulate matter, it's not good for your lungs. Like that was a huge problem in the Victorian era, where inside air quality was dangerous, and it could also affect the cities as well if enough people are using wood burning and coal burning to supply heat to their households. If you have enough people doing that, it's also going to affect the air quality in the cities in general. So yeah, and sadly, it's hard to even give blanket advice for people. Like this isn't an earthquake or a hurricane where you can basically expect the same effects across the board, where you can prepare for specific possibilities. This is going to affect people unequally. Like if you're already financially stressed out, this is going to affect you way more than people that have a financial buffer. It's going to affect people differently based on the regions they live in, the house types they live in, whether they're homeless or not, whether they have proper health care or not, whether they're in rural communities versus cities. So it's a challenge to even offer solutions to people for a problem this widespread and uncertain. So the best advice I have is, again, shore up your financials. Make sure that you are reducing your debt as much as you can and not adding additional debt. Try to find ways to stock up on food and water now while you can. Reduce the amount of travel that you're doing. Try not to fly by planes because those prices are also going to increase. And really, based on your region, like prepare for extreme heat, extreme storms, or extremely cold temperatures. There is a lot of resources available online that can help you with these types of preparations, to give you ideas of what you can do to reduce your costs, your prices, things that can help stave off the most negative impacts. If you have health issues and you rely on certain medications, you might also want to stockpile those as well if you can. Again, my heart goes out to anybody in a vulnerable position, because this is going to be a very, very stressful time for this country. And I would not be surprised in the slightest if we push ourselves into a Great Depression-like period again. The economy is already unstable as it is, and this is really going to push us over the edge. So I pray for everyone in this country, around the world, who are going to be dealing with the brunt impacts of this whole situation. And I hope this was informative. I know it's kind of jumping all over the place. There's a lot of components involved in this whole situation. But I urge you guys to stay up to date with what's going on. I also urge you guys to, as I said, start looking at resources of how to stave off some of the worst impacts that can possibly happen. And I urge you guys to be as safe as possible. This summer, I'm going to talk more about the El Nino in a future episode, but just so I get it out there, especially this summer, do not leave your pets and kids in cars. If you are in a region that is experiencing extreme heat and your electricity goes out or you don't have air conditioning, go to libraries, go to a cafe, go to a cooling center, find a location to save yourself, because heat waves are no joke. You do not want to underestimate the impacts of extreme heat. If you live in a wildfire prone region, start doing the preparations now. Cut away vegetation that comes up to your house. Try to trim back trees and bushes and grasses. There are programs out there where you can rent goats and they'll eat the grass for you if you can't do it yourself. Also, make sure that you have swept the roof of your house for any leaves and other material that could catch on fire. Have stuff put in place that way if you have to evacuate, you can do so easily with your important documents and stuff that you might need. There's, depending on where you are, there's a lot of preparation that might be necessary just to protect yourself. So I urge you guys to do that now as soon as you can, while it's still marginally easier to do so, because I anticipate the gas prices are only going to keep going up. I would not be surprised if we see $8 to $10 a gallon of just gasoline, $15 of diesel potentially in the future, near-ish future. But yeah, I really hope that, again, this was helpful to somebody. And I really appreciate you guys sticking around and watching. And other than that, I enjoyed talking about this, as negative as it was. And I just hope that it doesn't get as bad as I anticipate. So I will be back on Friday, and then my regular show like this will be next Wednesday. So I hope to see any of you guys here, and I hope you guys have a good Wednesday, and if I don't see you before then, a good weekend. So have a great day, and thank you for watching.
His own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the force of the Cold War.
It was a way of making me feel that they were a part of it.
You see it on the screen. If the government had to change the school in the grid, they have to shut it down. We got state troopers out there. They got planes flown. They got the strange machine.